meeting of March 6, 2013. Would you please rise and join me in honoring the country by pledging the allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Conway?
Here.
Mr. Gignac?
Here.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mayor Murphy? 6 yeas, 1 absent.
The first order of business, special order of business, Spotlight on Excellence, Lowell Rotary Club and Katie's Closet expansion. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. It is my delight this evening to have the Spotlight on Excellence to two amazing partners to Lowell Public Schools. The Lowell Rotary Club we've worked with over many years. They have been responsible for the celebration of teaching, long-standing practice and honor to all of our teachers, as well as all proceeds go to the scholarship fund. Additionally, now they're working in collaboration with the founder and other people from Katie's Closet. Also, our other really impressive partners are the people from Katie's Closet. The service that is provided through the quality, the caring, the unbelievable response for children who are in need of up-to-date and cool clothing is amazing. And so it is my honor to welcome you all here and thank you sincerely for me as a superintendent of the Lowell Schools on behalf of the children who benefit every day from your generosity. Thank you so much. And I welcome Principal Wendy Crocker-Roberge from the Pine Art School, one of our most current recipients. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Katie Bisson was a student at Lowell High who had a vision for helping students in need, despite her own health struggles throughout her life. She understood the obstacles her classmates faced on a daily basis, from the lack of basic necessities, such as clothing and personal care items, and how difficult it was for some of her classmates in need to come to school ready to focus on learning. Following her passing in 2010, her family brought her vision to life and opened Katie's Closets in schools across Lowell and Hudson, New Hampshire. Katie's Closets are stocked with high-fashion, new and gently used clothing in a wide range of sizes and styles, as well as personal care items and toiletries. From socks to winter coats, the staff and volunteers of Katie's Closet ensures that all items donated to students are clean, comfortable, and fashionable. Additionally, Katie's Closet has provided gift cards to families for basic needs and holiday gift giving. On January 12, 2013, Katie's Closet was opened at the J.G. Pine Arts Magnet School. This was the first of Katie's Closets to be sponsored through a grant from the Lowell Rotary Club. Rotarians and Katie's Closet volunteers teamed up to beautify the closet space, construct the closet fixtures, and stock the items, all within a week's time. The volunteers at Katie's Closet are simply a phone call away when the stock runs low or the seasons change, and volunteers return to the school throughout the year to refill the shelves and secure specialty items or sizes. Katie's Closets are currently open at the following Lowell schools: Lowell High School, McDonough Freshman Academy, LeBlanc School, Malloy High School, Laura Lee Therapeutic Day School, Bartlett Community Partnership School, Joseph G. Pine Arts Magnet School. The next location of Katie's Closet opened at the Robinson Middle School in February, and it included volunteers from the Pine Arts National Junior Honor Society. This location will also serve students from the neighboring McAuliffe School. We recognize Anne-Marie Bisson, founder of Katie's Closet, the volunteers from Katie's Closet, and Bob Belanger and the Lowell Rotary Club for their generosity to the students of the Lowell Public Schools in tonight's Spotlight on Excellence. Thank you. I'd like to invite Anne-Marie to say a few words.
Thank you, everyone, for having us. I just want to say thank you to the Lowell Public Schools who have opened their doors to Katie's Closet. I know it was a strange concept to begin with, and I think the thought was, what's the catch? But there is no catch. We are here just to help the students. We were really lucky to receive the grant from the Lowell Rotary. Bob Belanger was dogged in his determination for us to get this, calling me at 7 o'clock at night to make sure we had all the paperwork filled and in on time, and we got in just under the wire and got a grant from Rotary International. As Wendy said, that enabled us to open the Pine School, but what maybe many people don't know is in partnering with us to do the Pine School, Rotary members saw what Katie's Closet was all about. And when I told them I was trying to stretch their grant to open another school, they passed their hat at one of the meetings and came up with another $800, which enabled us to open the Robinson as well. So we're really thankful for that. And this Saturday, we'll be opening the Green Elch too. And so that's it. We were able to do what we do because of partnerships like the Rotary and all the donations we get from the community, all the clothing we get, the donations for toiletries, all the people who really rally around us. And it's amazing and heartwarming. So thank you for giving us the opportunity. And I just want to invite Bob Belanger, the president of the Lowell Rotary, up to say a few things.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie, and thank you, Jean, for inviting us. This is the Katie's Closet has become an emblematic, I think, of what the Lowell Rotary Club and Rotary International stands for. Rotary stands for service above self, and the organization of Katie's Closet is a tremendous example of that. They inspired us. We're glad that we were able to participate. We're glad that we could be here this evening. We're looking forward to the celebration of teaching in May. Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me a moment.
So on behalf of all the parties, I'd like to thank the Lowell School Committee, Superintendent Jean Franco, for allowing this spotlight on excellence. And I'd like to invite everyone to support Katie's Closet in their annual fundraising gala on Saturday, March 23rd at the Andover Country Club. Anne Marie is available for ticket sales, and the Pine will be there representing with a table from our school. So thank you very much. We appreciate it all.
Thank you very much. Any comments? You're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like to. Thank you. Again, thank you very much. Next on the agenda, the minutes. Approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of Wednesday, February 20th. Motion to accept by Ms. Scott, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Next on the agenda is permission to enter. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Conway. To Brandon Residential Treatment Center Incorporated, in the amount of $2,000 to amend the existing contract to provide for additional out-of-district tuition costs for 2 students enrolled in receiving services as outlined in the special education IEP. Budget would be provided by the school department budget special education tuition account. To the Lab Collaborative, in the amount of $15,476 to amend the existing contract to provide for additional out-of-district tuition costs for 2 students enrolled in receiving services as outlined in their special education IEP. Funding provided by the school department budget special education tuition account. To the Lighthouse School Incorporated in the amount of $100,000 to amend the existing contract to provide for the additional out-of-district tuition costs for 9 students and 2 additional students enrolled in receiving services as outlined in their special education IEPs. Funding provided by the school department budget special education tuition account. To St. Anne's Home Incorporated, the amount of $90,000 to amend the existing contract to provide for the additional out-of-district tuition costs for 8 students and 2 additional students enrolled in receiving services as outlined in their special education IEP. Funding provided by the school department budget, special education account. To George Sagai, PhD, in the amount of $6,500 to amend the existing contract to provide additional professional development services to support the implementation of the positive behavior intervention and supports framework to administrators and their staff in 3 schools in the freshman academy. Funding provided by the Race to the Top grant. To Brandy M. Simonson Gaines in the amount of $2,475 to amend the existing contract to provide additional professional development services to support the implementation of the positive behavior intervention and supports framework to administrative staff in 3 schools and the freshman academy. To Susanna Everett in the amount of $2,200 to amend the existing contract to provide additional professional development services to support the implementation of the positive behavior intervention and supports framework to administrators and staff in 3 schools in the freshman academy, funding provided through the Race to the Top grant. To Educators Corporation in the amount of $7,200 to provide for professional development services to administrators in the development and planning of the Career Academy to be housed at the Malloy School. Funding will be provided by the Gateway Cities Career Academy grant.
Do we have a motion to approve all the items? Ms. Rosikowicz, second by Mr. Gignac. Roll call.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy? 6 yeas, 1 absent. Approved.
Next on the agenda, motions by, first motion by Kristen Ross Sikowicz, request the superintendent create a folder and post future executive session meetings minutes of the Lowell School Committee online. Further request the superintendent seek guidance and a legal opinion from the city solicitor's office regarding the substantive requirements, review, approval, and posting of executive session meeting minutes in the context of the new open law. Second on the motion? Ms. Martin? Ms. Rosikowicz, on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. The motion does speak for itself. It's pretty clear, and I think it would be fairly simple to create that particular element of information on our website to make that information available to the public as it should be. I know that Deputy Superintendent Lang has something to add to this. Didn't you? Okay, maybe not. So, but certainly, you know, with regard to obtaining some guidance from the city solicitor.
Mr. Lang, do you now have memory of that?
Well, no, that was the second part of the motion. If we refer to this to the law department, we can ask the city solicitor's opinion just around the content of meeting minutes, what's required to be in meeting minutes, particularly around executive session. We haven't done that before, so what should be included, and just seek their guidance in action before we post them. The setting up on the website is not an issue, but we can refer this motion to the law office for review and then report back.
Any more discussion on the motion? Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Mr. Lang brought up a good point. I think it's pertinent to bring this to the city solicitor's office for further information. I refer that to you as a form of motion.
Do we have a second on that? Ms. Scott? All in favor? All opposed? So voted. On the motion, next on the agenda, curriculum, a report and approval of the minutes of the meeting on Thursday, February 21st, 2013. Ms. Martin, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So reporting on the Curriculum Instruction Subcommittee meeting of February 21st, present were myself, Mr. Leary, and Ms. Scott, also from the, who are all members of the Curriculum Instruction Subcommittee. Other members present was Ms. Rosikowicz. From the administration, we had Superintendent Franco, Assistant Superintendent Abrams, Assistant Superintendent Murphy, and Dr. Palache, who is the coordinator of English language education programs for our district. We had a number of different items that we discussed. First and foremost really was our discussion of neighborhood schools, prompted by a motion by my colleagues, Ms. Scott and Ms. Rosikowicz, where the administration was instructed to investigate the potential and possibilities for changing our choice program, our desegregation plan, and the administration did go back. There was a great deal that was kind of reported back out to us. I would actually defer to the expertise of Assistant Superintendent Murphy, just to kind of give us the salient points rather than me trying to translate it here. Because I think it was a pretty impressive report, and there was a great deal of information that was shared. So if you could perhaps share that with us now, rather than me doing my best to interpret.
Yes, what we started off doing when we looked at the motion was we took all of the students and we said, let's take a look at the demographics in the district. What do we have? What changes have been made in the past 5 years? And we've had some significant changes in our minority population and our non-minority population. We've had a 7% change in the last 5 years. We're currently at a 66% population of minority students, 34% non-minority students. We then took a look and said, if we placed all of the students in their neighborhood schools, took everyone out of their schools currently, put them in their neighborhood schools, what would our schools look like? And we found that some of the schools, those that are more into the center of the city with a more densely populated neighborhoods, those schools would certainly be overpopulated. We would be upwards of hundreds of students more than could fit capacity-wise into those buildings. And the reverse is also true, that there were the outlying schools, we would then be significantly undersubscribed. Our next task was to take a look and say, of all of the students who are currently in the schools, how many students actually live in their neighborhoods? And so we had a breakdown for each of the schools, how many students come from the neighborhoods, or if they didn't come from the neighborhood, which school was their neighborhood school. And when we took a look at that, I then went beyond the neighborhood and looked at the area. So when I looked at, say, the McAuliffe School over in Centerville, I looked to see how many students were in the neighborhood of the McAuliffe and how many students were in the neighborhood of the Greenouch School, so that combined, how many students who live over in the Centerville section of the city are actually going to school in that area. Where the motion was specifically asking us to look at developing a plan to have more students go to the neighborhood schools. That's sort of where we were heading. And so we provided a report to the subcommittee looking at those percentages. And the percentages range from a low of like 34% in the McAvenue to a high of 68% over at the McAuliffe School and the Morey School. Most of the schools averaged around 50% of the students would come from the general area of the school. We then took a look at our minority, non-minority enrollment, and the biggest issue for us is really keeping our schools balanced. And as we have, the past few years, placed more and more students within their neighborhood schools, it has really gotten us out of balance in certain areas. The city is divided into basically two zones. Zone 1 is Pawtucketville, the Acre, and the Highlands. Zone 2, Centerville, Belvedere, South Lowell, and the Zone 3 schools are open to everyone. When we look at the desegregation plan, it calls for us to be within 10 percentage points of the average for each zone. And in Zone 1, the average is 29% of the students are non-minority students. And when we look at the schools, there are some schools that are not in compliance, specifically the Merkland School, which has a very low percentage of non-minority students, the Stocklosa School, and the reverse is the Pawtucket Memorial, which has more non-minority students than is really allowable under the compliance plan. Zone 2 is all completely in compliance. The citywide schools, there are a couple of schools that are out of compliance, specifically the Pine Arts has more minority students than is really allowable under the plan. The Moody also stands out. The issue with the Moody is that it's a Portuguese school, and so our Portuguese language students, our students who speak primarily Portuguese, must go to school there. And when we look at our citywide schools, whether they're special education, ELL schools, we need to factor that in as well. And so at the time of the subcommittee meeting, we really weren't ready to propose a plan to make any changes to this. We were still at the time awaiting the planning board's decision on the charter school, which I believe they passed that on Monday night. And the second piece is that we're waiting for a study of the birth rate that we're getting from NASDAQ, and hopefully we're getting it by the mid to the end of this month to really look to see what the projection is going to be for the school system. We know the past couple of years we've had a significant growth in kindergarten students. Our kindergarten and first grade students, our classes are very large, and we really need to look to see if that trend is going to continue. So we're still pulling data, and we will have a report for the next curriculum subcommittee meeting that will just update the committee on the new information that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you very much. And as we go through the minutes, we can accept that at the end as part of the overall report of progress. Second topic that was discussed at the subcommittee was, again, a motion by my colleagues, Ms. Rosikowicz and Ms. Scott, about establishing exam school models at the middle school level. Again, it was a very, I think, engaged conversation, and I think we're all very interested in the idea of ensuring that all of our students are being challenged at every level, and particularly at the middle school level. I think one of the key things that we heard from the administration was that the concerns of principals and the central office administration as well was the idea of being able to implement this, and it's how effective it would be when we're still in the process of moving towards the Common Core standards. We're making a lot of different changes to our curriculum, and that the actual structure itself at the middle school level would not necessarily be effective, was kind of the general consensus, and I'll certainly defer to my colleagues in a moment so that they can offer their opinions as well, where it was their motion. I think the key thing that I walked away from as we kind of concluded the meeting was that we do have some real opportunities in our city to make some changes and to make some improvements along these lines. For myself and my senses from the subcommittee and the committee as a whole, there's real interest in pursuing the opportunity of establishing, at this point, I'm looking at 2 different STEM-based schools. If we were able to take that curriculum incentive really, and really infuse it in at least 2, I'm looking at the 2 zones as we've talked about it, so that what we're doing is we're building these specialty schools that have very real and substantive ties to the subject matter. I know for many of us who, and this was even really before me, our schools used to be theme-based, which I think was very engaging and had some nice impact, but really the themes were not the kind of really intense, rigorous, curriculum-driven kind of organizing principles. When we talk about developing STEM schools where students who would have a particular predilection, a particular interest in science, technology, engineering, math, that they'd be able to go to a school that really had a true focus in that area. And I think that would be one of the ways that we can really differentiate our schools from other offerings, strengthen them overall, and there would be the opportunity, I think, in that environment to be able to, at the higher grades, offer perhaps not an exam school unto itself, but be able to do some additional differentiation that would allow high-performing students, particularly in those areas, those curriculum-based areas, to really have greater exposure and an even more challenging learning experience. So, as we went through the process, again, much like the, our previous motion, we did ask to be updated. The Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee does meet on a monthly basis, so we asked to be updated again when we come together in March to see what the opportunity would be, not necessarily, I don't think we can look at a start date this coming September, but with the appropriate time that we could perhaps in the 14-15 school year really be able to establish these schools. We've made the investments in expertise at the central office and with our district's support specialists in the STEM area. And I think that that's the biggest way that we can really get a true profound impact with those, particularly with those staff positions, by really creating 2 new schools that would really be drawing from that expertise in a new way, and again in a you know, I hope very intense way. So I would, it was the motion of my 2 colleagues, and I would certainly welcome their input on this.
Yes, Ms. Sikowicz?
I actually found these 2 reports very much related to one another, and I'm really glad at the timing of the 2 reports having been presented together, because I think given the data around neighborhood schools and how do we bring those schools back into balance in terms of racial balance, and then it strikes the next question. Those schools that are either under-enrolled or over-enrolled, non-minority, minority, how do we incentivize incentivize enrollment in those under or over-enrolled schools? And so I think it presents excellent opportunities for us and for our students, certainly to drive instruction to all levels of ability across the school system. Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other area that we discussed during the meeting that was a very, very important topic was the number of students in our classrooms and the impact that that's having, and how we expect teachers to be able to differentiate instruction between, 30 kids in a middle school classroom and 25 to 27 sometimes at the elementary level. I think it's an important discussion that will continue going into the budget session. And the other area that I think is very relevant that we talked about was the possible use of technology in the classroom to provide some additional differentiation for our middle school students that maybe need a little bit further challenge in the room. So I'm hoping that we certainly will continue that discussion going forward in our monthly curriculum subcommittee meetings. Thank you for bringing all this work forward.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank
Any
you.
more discussion?
Yes, sorry.
Continue, Ms. Martin.
Our third topic was the coordinated program review. Actually, this was already presented to the full committee at our last meeting. This was just some of the backup information. We certainly have seen some areas where we're going to need to make some investments, perhaps even some additional ELL instructors as we move forward with our budget process. And that we're really looking at the English language learner department is really looking at this report that the superintendent had presented to us, as I said, at our last meeting, to kind of tease out what the priorities are going to be and what we can accomplish in short order and really in terms of next year in terms of our investment. Fourth topic was a financial literacy grant that has been submitted by the Lowell Public Schools to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Financial literacy is obviously something we've discussed on this floor several times. This committee has voted several times to support these efforts in a variety of different ways in our district. I think this is, it's really encouraging to see the DESE taking this on and actually putting out grant proposals and funding these new programs. As generally is the case, there are it is pretty structured in terms of what they were looking for. So the process of developing this grant really was, I think, kind of creating something in the image of what DESE was already looking for, which is, still a significant investment. And ensuring that at the high school we do have personal economics, personal finance classes so that students are getting exposed to these important concepts. I will say again I was involved in this both as a school committee member, also in my work at community teamwork. Financial literacy is something that I work very directly with. And we do have staff that helped in part of the grant development process and who have volunteered to assist as the program gets implemented with no fee for service as a pro bono donation. But it is, I think, encouraging that we're seeing this. Again, at the end of the day, I truly believe that the most effective way for us to take this information, the financial literacy information, I think we start at the freshman academy, we build it through the high school, but we also need to be infusing it throughout our district at every level. And I think the most effective way to do that is to look at it not as a add-on or as a new, set of standards or anything like that. These are all concepts that can be built into existing curriculum standards, whether it's mathematics, social studies, economics, English. I mean, any one of these topics can be the basis of a project or an assignment or a curriculum unit where you're taking financial literacy concepts and really just introducing it based on regular kind of curriculum content. So that's my own little editorial comment. So we did accept that as a subcommittee. Our fifth report was on Math Family Night, which seems to have been a great success, welcoming dozens of families to the Rogers School to participate in different activities, both parents and students, learning more about the Common Core, state standards in mathematics, and kind of the teaching and assessments that are going on here in our district. So it was great to have so many parents engaged and involved in our mathematics work. Our final topic was the motion that this committee had voted on a couple meetings ago about investigating the potential for eliminating school during Election Day, looking at the safety concerns around that. It is listed as a report of the superintendent later in this meeting, so I would ask if we could defer that and perhaps push up the superintendent's report. I'd ask for a suspension of the rules so that we could take that report out of order with the added benefit of it aggravating the
Motion by Mr.
secretary.
Leary, second by Ms. Martin.
Thank you.
All
So
in
if we could
favor?
ask
Opposed? So voted.
that was a nail biter, wasn't it?
I know.
You don't know which way that vote's gonna go. So if I could ask the superintendent, I know that you were in conversation with the city solicitor's office to get us more information in time for tonight's meeting.
Yes, the meeting we talked about, that particular subcommittee meeting did occur. So to answer at this particular point, the first part of your motion, Ms. Martin, which was requesting that the upcoming school safety review include information on potential impact of shifting professional development days to coincide with voting days in our school. It appears that beyond the Lowell School Committee being concerned about voting day in school, it is something that has come up on the floor of the City Council. So both City Solicitor O'Connor and myself were looking for each other's advice and information about it. So you all, as a committee, have also approved a district-wide safety review, and this particular item will be asked to be reviewed in that safety review, but I really wanted to do something for now because at your next meeting, I would like to finalize the calendar, the academic calendar for next year. So here is the proposal. There is going to be a special election for the state senator, so we're in a little different, we have a couple of extra dates that we normally don't have. So for the special elections, when they happen, we had said, we always have extra presence, police presence and whatnot, but primary elections aren't as heavily, there's not as heavy participation. And so what the city solicitor and I had discussed for your review is on those particular dates, beyond the police that are there kind of overviewing the safety outside, inside, the Lowell Public Schools, well, I would ask for my principals to assign one person to be looking at the inroad into that particular school site, just for that primary day. So when it's a primary day, that we would make that special event. That would happen this, I guess it's April, there's a primary, and then it would happen if we come to a primary for the regular election in September. So that was the request, because getting into not having school days on all those days would take us probably far beyond where we want to go as a committee. So that's what we're thinking for now. Again, as part of the safety review comes in and the different recommendation, we can review that when that occurs. When it comes to November election day, which is always a day that we've talked about, with angst for years. Presidential election this year was heavily, attended. We were really concerned those days. The principals and leaders themselves were all around trying to make sure the safety was peace. So it is my recommendation to the committee that for the upcoming election, except the one in 2013, which I believe is November 6th, that November 5th, when we come to our school calendar that's presented next month, that we take that as a non-school day, and we add the 180th day onto the end of the year for now. In the future, we of course want to perhaps look at adding additional days, professional development-wise, when we go to contractual agreements. But at this particular point, my recommendation for the safety of our young people is, especially on the final election days, that we do that in preparation. So for your review, your comments, that's the report.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Mr. Gignac, on the report from the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This might seem minuscule, but I did notice in the report it did say state senate election. It's actually the United States Senate. So just for record-keeping purposes, if we could amend that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Conway. First off, I do want to thank the superintendent and the city solicitor for working on this project. And as a first step, I think that this makes a really good first effort. I think that I'm really particularly interested to hear what comes back to us when we do our full-on comprehensive safety review, how this is kind of presented, this situation that we have, which we're certainly not alone in. The idea of putting an additional amount of staff for the primaries, I think does make perfect sense, because in any given year it can change, as we've certainly seen in the last couple years here. And I think that is a reasonable accommodation for primary days. And I think where we can plan ahead for the general election, it makes sense to just move those, close the schools for those days. They are the ones that we're the most concerned about. So I think that makes perfect sense. And I think that it's something we'll return to quite naturally when we have our overall safety discussion. But I really do think that this is a great starting point, and I think it will be really helpful as we kind of see, especially when we have a special election coming up so soon, we'll be able to really get some immediate data on how this is implemented and how staff, families, students kind of can respond to the situation. Thank you very much, and I would support that if we have the opportunity tonight. With the indulgence of the chair, I would make that motion that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent and the city solicitor's office to implement this new election day strategy.
Second by Mr. Gignac. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. On the report, Ms. Martin.
I would submit that entire lengthy report as a report of progress of the Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee, and I thank you all for your
Thank you for that. Thank you for that very inclusive report. Motion by Ms. Martin and second by Ms. Leary to accept the report and place on file. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. The second subcommittee meeting, Student Support Services, report and approval of the minutes of the meeting of Tuesday, February 26, 2013. Ms. Kristen Ross-Sikowitz, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. The committee members present were myself, Mr. Conway, Mr. Gignac, Superintendent Jean Franco, and Assistant Superintendent Ann Murphy were on hand to give us this very entertaining information. The Student Support Services Subcommittee meeting met on two issues. The first item was the bus driver emergency procedures. This was a result of a concern that was brought forward by not only a district parent, but also one of our district bus drivers. Assistant Superintendent Murphy had reported on new procedures for bus drivers when emergency medical situations occur. In consultation with the Health Department, a medical information form was developed, which will be completed for every transported student with a medical condition. Each bus driver will be given a copy of the medical form completed by the school nurse for all students the driver transports. The Family Resource Center Coordinator John Dakota, Attorney Mike Ortiz, and School Nurse Manager Beth Moffett met with bus drivers on February 25th and 26th to review the new medical forms and procedures. So there was a motion by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gignac, to accept the report as a report of progress. The second item was the Career Academy proposal. Assistant Superintendent Murphy provided the subcommittee with an update on the proposed Career Academy. The overarching goal of the Career Academy is to help struggling students engage in education in a different way, become academically successful, and connect with career and college pathways after high school. The highlights of the plan include the program will be housed at the Malloy School. Currently enrolled Malloy students will continue in their existing programs. Dual programs will run at the school for the first 2 years. This will be a 4-year program with year 1 targeting 9th grade students from current alternative school programs. Each year, a new freshman class will be added to the program. Contextualized curriculum that integrates hands-on, project-based academic learning with career awareness activities, incorporating positive behavior interventions and supports as a framework to support classroom management and whole school discipline strategies. The administration has recommended that the elimination of the position of alternative school coordinator at the Malloy School and create the position of Director of Alternative Education, which will serve as the coordinator of the Career Academy. Funding for the position will be placed at the Lowell High School housemaster level, which is a $6,000 difference from an alternative school coordinator position as it presents currently. In addition to the responsibility of overseeing the Career Academy, the Director of Alternative Education would also be responsible for oversight and evaluation of all alternative programs, bring a cohesiveness to alternative education by developing guiding principles for the district, conduct a comprehensive study of alternative programs inclusive of budget analysis, support data-driven decisions to assess effectiveness of current alternative education programs, support the development and implementation of PBIS, assess student needs and explore more alternative education options for students, and explore the possibility of forming a re-engagement center for students who have dropped out. So there was a motion by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Conway, to recommend to the school committee the approval of the Director of Alternative Education position for the Career Academy as outlined by the administration.
Second, Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Just real quick, first, I'm definitely going to support this. I think the structure and changing it in a way that's going to add value and hopefully improve student performance for alternative schools is a long time coming. I think this position will be able to evaluate and hopefully provide direction that, we've had a lot of good people try to do many good things in the alternative schools, but we need to coordinate it really basically through all the levels. So I think this is a position that will add value, and the amount of money of $6,000 increase is well spent. So I'm definitely going to support it and thank the administration for putting the time and effort into it. Thank you.
Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you don't mind, I'd like to take item number 18 out of order to vote on that now, which is the permission to post this position.
Correct, Mr. Gignac. Excuse me. A motion by Mr. Gignac to I think first of all, what we have to do is vote on the position, the posting first, and then the position. Is that correct? The posting first. So recommend to the school committee the approval of a Director of Special Ed position for the Career Academy as outlined by the administration, by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Leary. Roll call.
Ms. Rostikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy. 6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
And I would submit that as a report of progress.
By Ms. Rosikowicz and second by, excuse me 1 minute. We're going to have to back up for here for a second. We have to vote on the actual position itself. A motion for the position, Mr. Gignac, second by Mr. Leary. Roll call.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy? 6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Now I believe we can have a motion by Ms. Rosikowicz and second by Ms. Martin to accept and place the report on file.
Please. Thank you.
Yes. All in favor? All opposed? The next subcommittee meeting, athletics, report and approval of the minutes of the meeting on Tuesday, February 26, 2013. Robert Gignac, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gignac.
Thank you. I apologize if my report lasts longer than the actual meeting. The Athletic Subcommittee met on February 26th at 7 p.m. sharp. Those in attendance were myself, Mr. Conway, Mr. Leary, Deputy Superintendent Jay Lang, Superintendent Gene Franco, and Athletic Director Mr. DeProfio. We met on 2 agenda items, the middle school intramural sports, spring 2013 pilot. As you may recall, back in January, the committee was presented with a budget of roughly $11,000 to have a pilot for field hockey, wrestling, and tennis during the school vacation week. The subcommittee recommended to the athletic director and the superintendent that the school department look into alternative resources to fund these programs, and Mr. DeProfio provided us with a revised budget of $5,915, requesting that $3,600 from the school department be funded for coach stipends. So a motion was made by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Leary, to recommend the approval of the pilot for the full school committee and recommend $3,600 be transferred from the school committee suspense account to provide for intramural coach stipends. I refer that to the chair for a formal vote.
Mr. Gignac, and second by Mr. Leary. Roll call.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy? 6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Motion by Mr. Gignac and second by Mr. Leary to accept and place on file. All in favor, all opposed. Reports of the superintendent. The first report, response to motions, January 16, 2013 by Connie Martin, voting day and election day. We already had that report. We need a motion for the report to...
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me. Mr. Gignac, I'm sorry.
Thank you. If we could just backtrack a little bit.
Sure, go right ahead.
Thank you. The athletic subcommittee, although it only lasted 7 minutes, I wasn't...
I know the report's about 20 so far, but go ahead.
Well, you're doing a great job. The second item on the agenda was the athletic strategic plan. The athletic director presented a description of what he's doing to promote the Lowell High School athletics. I'm not going to get into it because apparently you're in a rush. But I submit that as a report of progress.
And second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Again, going back to the first report by the superintendent, response to the motion January 16, 2013 by Connie Martin, voting day and election day. A report already was given. We need a motion to accept accept the report of progress by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Scott. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Second report by the superintendent, response to motion of 120512 by David Conway, the hiring process. Mr. Gignac, would you like to make a motion on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
I make motion to refer this to the next school committee meeting.
Second by Mr. Leary. All in favor?
Offer an alternative, and I'm not sure what's prompting this, but would it be perhaps a better place if we refer it to the Personnel Subcommittee so that we could discuss it and then be able to vote on it by the time we hit the next school committee meeting?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So I would offer a friendly amendment to my colleagues.
Second by
that's fine.
Mr. Leary. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. The next report by the superintendent, Level 3 Priority Schools and Community Training and Assistance Center. An update, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, as the committee knows, through the approved goals that were accepted, I believe 2 meetings ago, the progress of all of our schools of our utmost importance, and we look at the progress as we go throughout the year. But I do want to always make a specific, my intention to be updating you on progress of the Level 3 schools. And this is the progress of the agency that has worked with us on school improvement, the Community Training and Assistance Center. They have been working at the Sullivan and the Riley schools, and they've been reviewing and analyzing data, survey data from all levels of the organization, including parents, students. They also analyze the growth and the demographics, and they're looking at the trends. These are all exercises in getting to the root cause of school improvement. And so what needs to change internally to make sure that the progress of students is at an absolute optimum. That's the work that's going on. Additionally, there are 4 more schools that will be beginning this process, or in the process right now. The Bartlett Community Partnership, Stocklosa, Shaughnessy, and McAvenue schools are in fact undergoing this study, and they're looking at the data in a very detailed way to make sure that those root causes come in the instructional and the organizational pieces of the schools change in tandem to, so we'll see progress as quickly as possible. I just wanted to keep you aware of that.
Mr. Conway,
Yes, Mr. Leary.
I don't know if the public really understands what CTAC is, but I guess just a brief explanation to the public of what they are. And just second, we know we're working on some of the schools that are in the level 3 area. Is this an area where they can also preempt and look at other schools that are doing level 1 or level 2 in an effort? I mean, is it, how much is the cost associated with it, if there is? Just a brief explanation for folks, and then how can we utilize this if it is working in an effective manner for other schools as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Leary. The CTAC organization are outside providers that come in and take an outside perspective to bring the situations or the conversations to really get to the underlying meaning. And many times when you're close to the action, you need that outside perspective to bring educators to the consensus of what is it that we need to do and be able to provide for our students. So that's what that outside provider, this is a nationally known provider. They have done school improvement in cities like Detroit, for one, that I know of that work. And so the school committee has approved funding through Race to the Top, but you you have approved the contract. I believe I think the amount is, I'll ask Mrs. Abrams if she remembers.
I think the latest amount, it first started when we were just in 2 schools, which was $75,000, but I think it's gone up to about $165 at this point, to be in all the schools that we're in right now.
And that's the outside perspective. That comes with team meetings, facilitation of those meetings, meeting with staff people as an internal team represented by a whole cadre of all levels of the organization. So there are participants in that leadership team from each grade level, special education, English language education, of course, administration and others. And so they look at that data and then they share it with the entire staff. So that's the work that's being done in those level 3 schools. It's also, CTAC is not directly involved in the Merklin at this point because they've seen the substantial gains, but they are always on a consulting kind of a check-in with Principal DiCarlo, even at that level 4 school, to make sure we're making the progress. But that's basically the proposal. It's worked with our school in the case of the Merklin, and we're seeing progress. So that's what the process is, Mr. Leary.
Mr. Gignac?
Mr. Leary, were you done?
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the superintendent for providing us with this update. I think it's very important for the committee to be updated on the status of the level 3 schools and what's going on there. I was actually going to put on a motion to have an update on what's going on. If next time we can get an update on a more descriptive report on actually what's going on at each individual school, I think it's important to know that the CTAC is working with these specific schools. But I did notice in the report that it says in March of this year, 4 more schools will undertake the standard bearer school process. Obviously, that's a great process that we're going to go through, and hopefully we'll receive more data. However, I think it's important to note that it's halfway through the school year, and as a school committee, personally, I would like to receive this information earlier. I think it's important for us to be working on these level 3 schools to bump them up every year, and that's just a recommendation. And I think it's important for us to look at this information when we come budget season to know what we need to provide to these specific schools. But I do thank you for giving us an update. I think it's very important for us to be well aware of what's going on. Thank you.
Mr. Leary?
Just real quick, too, I appreciate you bringing out and explaining to the folks, the public, CTAC, and it's basically a consultancy group, but the way we're using it is to help in areas that we don't have the resources internally to use. And as you said earlier, sometimes you're so close looking at it that you need an outside, source, if you will, to come in and help work that program. But one of the things we need to do as we're spending money on CTAC and any other vendor that we use is really analyzing whether or not they're having the impact. And obviously, if you see the improvement in the Riley and the Sullivan going up to a 2 or a 1 in the next measurement, that's one indicator. But I think that's something when we get into using these other schools, are these folks going to be that successful? Is it worth that financial investment? I think I'm optimistic that it is, but I think we need to make sure and track it as we go forward. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the report? A motion for a report of progress by Ms. Rosikowicz, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Next report of the superintendent's 2012-2013 self-assessment. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Conway. As part of the evaluation system, which I know this committee knows a good deal about, we've been through the process with my evaluation one time, and then, of course, all the language in negotiation sessions. We have looked at, self-assessment as part of this, so this is my latest look at my own practice as far as making proficiencies in exemplary practices. And if you look at the 4 standards, I won't bring you through the whole document, but if you look at the content page, which is the overview of all of the goals, it is your page, II. And it is the superintendent's rubric at a glance. You will see all the standards. You may recall this is the same exact template that you used for my evaluation in the last particular run through. I do see myself as proficient in all areas, and I I don't know if you'll agree, but I do see myself exemplary in some, and those exemplaries come in with communication with different audiences and shared vision. The only feedback that I get for myself is I've been asked to present about the way I evaluate at new superintendents and the vision that I try and share with people when I bring. So those are some of the areas where I've gotten outreach from others. So basically, this is my own thought. I have to tell you that I know about the very important connection to data. So I am as good as how good the children are doing. That's how I see my role in the school system. That's how I always will see my role in the school system. So my primary role is to see the progress as we go, but I do hope you think that I am working to high capacity and doing the best work that I can do. If you'd like to review my comments in a more public fashion, or if you want to look at it in more detail, because this is quite a voluminous rubric, I would be more than happy to do that at a personnel subcommittee, or if you want to make comments at this point, I welcome them. Thank you.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate, and we've certainly looked at the instrument. It's great to have one that's basically been completed as you've gone through it. My question would be in terms of timing, that this is a formative, instrument. I would still be anticipating that at the conclusion of the year, we'll be looking at a summative copy of this, and that's what we'd then be using for our official evaluation process. I just want to make sure that this is being presented to us just as a snapshot, but that we'd still be anticipating getting a finalized version at the conclusion of the year that would fall in line with our regular kind of evaluation structure.
Madam Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Conway. Yes, exactly. It is supposed to be, as part of the process, self-assessment is a very important part of the 5 stages. And it comes to part of the goal setting. So this is my view of myself, and then, of course, we go through the entire process, because it would absolutely be no fun if I was just viewing myself. But this is the first stage in the mandate. This is the part of the mandated educator law. So I am anticipating we'll be following the same process. And I would entertain, and I would like to put on the future personnel subcommittee kind of other check-ins that the regulations do allow you to have. I have mid-year check-ins with staff. I look at data at different times. So I would be more than happy to go over different routines. We can now, because it's our second year, that big picture progress. Truthfully, what the state is recommending is that you really cut down on the indicators. We did the whole process just for the experience, but as a committee, you might say, that as superintendent of schools, we really want you to focus on these standards and to get the practice up to another level. So I would be more than happy to look at lots of the processes, but there are mid-year templates, there are formative kind of check-ins where you can ask me for different data. You could ask me for different levels of evidence, Ms. Martin. So I entertain just talking about the process, how we're rolling it out as a district with coming up to the practitioner piece. It's very interesting, and it's very labor intensive, but we are all creating the best educators and supporting people at the best level, and so I entertain that assistance from you all as my leaders.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Any other comments? A motion by Ms. Scott, second by Ms. Martin for report of progress. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next report by the superintendent, home education.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. This is a request for permission to home educate. So Sok Homal Chan the family would like to educate their child. That will make the total number of families 23, and 42 children are home educated in Lowell.
Do I have a motion by Mr. Gignac, second by Mr. Leary? Roll call.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy? 6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
The next report of the superintendent, dinner provided after-school program sites. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you. A report from Deputy Superintendent Lang, who informs us that our Aramac Food Service Director, Sharon Lagasse, has informed us that we will now be approved over the next 3 years to provide dinner at our extended time locations. There will be 500 dinner meals will be served 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday at the after-school locations, which are the Green Elge, Maury, Shaughnessy, Robinson, Stockloser, and at Lowell High School Freshman Academy. The program began on Monday, February 25th.
Ms. Martin on the report.
Thank you very much. I just really want to, extend thanks to Aramark as a great partner with our district in offering this new service and in going for the funding and being successful in it. I think it's a great service for our students who are there and for their families, and it's just one more way that Aramark is recognizing, being a better and better partner with our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Any more discussion on the report? A motion by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Rosikowicz, for a report of progress. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. The next report by the superintendent, MCAS free student breakfast and snacks. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, another report from Mr. Lang that is from Sharon Lagasse, our Aramac Food Service Director, who's talking about universal free breakfast and healthy snacks during MCAS, and that has been put into place according to regulations, and this will be all the way through our school system through the MCAS season. So our thanks go to Ms. Lagasse and the Aramac staff for this important piece to our MCAS testing.
Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo Ms. Martin's comments, I think this is just another piece of evidence that the Aramark is a true partner to the school district and that they're trying as best as they can to provide for our students. So we do appreciate their hard work and what they do. Thank you.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. What he said. But what I did have
Is that
another...
in the form of a motion?
No. My question was actually, and it's really, I guess, more serendipitous just that this would come up. I know that I recently heard, and by recent I think I mean this morning, a radio piece about Massachusetts basically being the 50th state in terms of providing appropriate school breakfasts for nationwide. And I know that we have achieved some pretty good numbers here in the city of Lowell, and that many of our schools are full service. There's no differentiation. All students qualify, and that kind of universal breakfast is part of our offerings. But just because it's in my mind, and that we're having these great reports from the work that Aramark is doing, could I request here on the floor that we get a report maybe even at our next meeting, just to see where we stand on that? If my sense is that it's been a process that's been moving forward, our universal breakfast program, but it would be great to get a report on it and see where we're at.
Mr. Gignac? Second on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Any more discussion on the report, superintendent's report? A motion by Mr. Gignac and second by Mr. Leary, report of progress. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The last report by the superintendent Response to motion on January 2nd, 2013 by Kim Scott. Website links to policy manual and employment contracts. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Conway. This is a report in response to a motion by Ms. Scott that requests that we provide a link to the current school committee policy manual and all employment contracts online. This report states that these particular employment contracts and the policy manual have been put online, and there are directions on where, in fact, they are on the website, and I ask for any comments or concerns you may have.
Any discussion on the report? Mr. Leary?
In addition, there's a good idea too, and I don't forget who mentioned this, but maybe we need to, I don't know if we need a motion or not, but can we put our motions, speaking of motions, can we put our motions online as well? I mean, just because folks are trying to track them and see what you've done, what have been responded to, what are still outstanding. That might be a good idea to follow it as well. I don't know if you need a separate motion. If you do, we can bring it back next week, but just as a thought process. Thank you.
Mr. Lang?
Yeah, that was the next phase of the Agenda.net software, because the city council, it's my understanding, is going to be going online very soon with this as well. And once you actually create your agenda from it, and then you post your minutes from it, there's a way on the website to then link the reports to the motions. I'll do some research for you to tell you about how long down the line that is and what it's going to entail, but that is the next phase of the rollout of this.
Any more discussion, Ms. Scott?
Through you to Ms. Lang, I'd just like to thank you for putting these up there.
A motion by Ms. Scott and second by Mr. Leary. Report of progress. All in favor, all opposed? So voted. And we come to that sad time of the night, an adjournment. Ms. Martin. Motion by Ms. Martin and second by Mr. Gignac. All in favor? All opposed? So voted.